At 6:30 on a freezing Thursday morning, my sister called to tell me our father had passed away. There was only one problem. Dad was sitting 3 feet away from me at my kitchen table, wearing a navy flannel robe, sipping fresh coffee, and stealing bacon from my plate like he had been doing every morning for the past 2 days. At 6:30 on a freezing Thursday morning, my sister called to tell me our father was dead. There was just one problem with that. Dad was sitting 3 feet away from me at my kitchen table, wearing a navy flannel robe, sipping fresh coffee, and stealing bacon off my plate like he'd been doing every morning for the past 2 days. I stared at the name glowing on my phone, Vanessa. My older sister treated mornings like a personal enemy. In 32 years, I could not remember her voluntarily existing before 8. A call from her at 6:30 meant something was seriously wrong. I just never imagined she'd be reporting a death that hadn't happened. Here's what you need to know first. 2 days earlier, Dad had shown up at my apartment in Columbus with one overnight bag. No warning. He drove 3 hours from Deacon's Mill to get to me. When I opened the door, all he said was, "I have a mistake to fix, Natalie." Something 32 years old. Then he refused to explain another word. Not that night, not the next day. He just moved into my guest room, complained about my coffee, and started stealing bacon off my plate every morning like it was his job. I'm 32, by the way. For 2 days, I did that math over and over, and a small cold part of me kept wondering whether my father had driven 3 hours to tell me that the mistake was me. Now his eyes were locked on my phone. "What?" he whispered. I answered the call and tapped speaker. "Vanessa?" For a few seconds, all I heard was a car engine and a clicking turn signal. She was driving somewhere at 6:30 in the morning. Then she said it, flat, like she was reading a grocery list. "Natalie, Dad died last night." Dad stopped chewing. I turned to look at him. He looked right back at me, very much alive, very confused. A strip of my bacon frozen halfway to his mouth. "When?" I managed. "Sometime overnight. Harold found him this morning." That name was chosen carefully. Harold Pike had been Dad's best friend for 40 years. He owned the funeral home in town before he sold it. If you wanted a fake death to sound real in Deacon's Mill, Harold was exactly the name you'd use. "What happened to him?" I asked. Vanessa sighed. She actually sighed, like my question was wasting her time. "Does it matter? He's gone." Dad's face hardened. Then came the part she had clearly rehearsed. "Grant and I are handling everything. Don't come to the house. We're changing the locks this morning." Grant, my brother-in-law. I could hear him laughing somewhere in the background, low and pleased. Grant always laughed like a man who'd just gotten away with something. Vanessa lowered her voice, gentle as a nurse delivering bad news. "We found Dad's papers last night. The house, the truck, the accounts. He left everything to me and Grant." A pause. She wanted this next part to land. "You were specifically excluded." Grant took the phone. "You hear that, Natalie? You're finally out of this family. No more flying in twice a year and playing the devoted daughter. No more pretending you matter here. The will is clear. The house is ours. The money is ours. The truck goes up for sale on Monday. Your old bedroom? That's my gym now. We'll box up whatever junk you left in there. You can pick it up off the porch. The funeral is Saturday," Vanessa added. "Family only." She paused, so it would sting. "Real family." My throat went tight, not from grief, from rage. "You're planning his funeral," I said slowly, "and he hasn't even been gone one day." "Someone has to be the adult," Vanessa snapped. "The locks change at 9. We meet the lawyer at 10. By lunch, it's finished. Don't make this ugly, Natalie." And that's when it fully hit me. She wasn't crying. She wasn't broken. She was driving across town before sunrise with a checklist, and burying our father was item number 3. She had already counted the money. She had already divided the rooms. She had already decided I was nothing. And she had absolutely no idea. Dad wiped his hands on a napkin, slowly, calmly. The confusion was gone from his face, and what replaced it was something cold and quiet, and, honestly, a little frightening. Grant had one more line ready. "Say goodbye to being Daddy's little favorite." Dad leaned toward the phone. "Vanessa." The line went completely silent. Even the turn signal stopped clicking. "That's interesting," he said, "because I don't remember dying." 3 seconds of nothing. Then the call ended. She hung up on us, on her dead father and her disinherited sister, at 6:34 in the morning. Dad set the phone face down, looked at me, and said the only thing that could have made it worse. "Natalie, that lawyer appointment she's going to at 10? It was supposed to be mine. I should tell you what I do for a living because it matters. I'm a forensic accountant, certified fraud examiner, CPA, 7 years at Marsh & Delgado in Columbus. When a company's controller buys a lake house on an $80,000 salary, I'm the person who reads 3 years of ledgers and finds the lake house. My sister has spent my entire adult life telling people I do something with spreadsheets." I took the legal pad off the counter and sat back down across from him. "Dad, stop talking to me like your daughter. Talk to me like a client. From the beginning. Don't skip anything because it embarrasses you." He talked for 2 hours. The coffee went cold. Neither of us noticed. My mother, Ellen, was a 3rd-grade teacher. I was 8 months old when she died. Ovarian cancer, found late, gone fast. Diagnosed in April, buried by the end of November. I have no memories of her. I have a photograph of her holding me in a kitchen I don't remember, and I have her chin. 11 days before she died, she and Dad sat in Walter Bray's law office and signed the Ellen Callahan Family Trust, $250,000, her teacher's union life policy plus what her own mother had left her. For the girls, half and half, principal preserved, distributions for education and health, everything else at Dad's death. Dad was trustee, and there was one clause Walter called housekeeping. Housekeeping. The eldest daughter becomes co-trustee at 25, November 18, 1994, 32 years ago, almost to the day. That's the mistake, Dad said. I signed your mother's money into Vanessa's hands, and then I never looked at it again. Looking felt like grieving twice. Vanessa was 16 when Mom died. I want to be fair here, because for a long time, this was the load-bearing fact of our family. She braided my hair, packed my lunches, learned to forge Mom's handwriting on permission slips before forging became a lifestyle. Dad was working 60 hours keeping Callahan Heating and Air alive. Vanessa ran the house. Everyone in Deacon's Mill will tell you she saved us, and for a few years, I think that was true. In 2003, she turned 25 and the clause woke up. Co-trustee, automatically. She offered to take the statements off Dad's plate. He let her. She was good with paperwork. She was already selling houses by then. Top producer plaques going up the stairwell to a year. In 2009, I was picking colleges. Dad asked Vanessa to set up the education distributions the trust was built for. He told me about the conversation at their kitchen table like a man confessing to a priest. Vanessa, eyes wet. The crash gutted it, Daddy. 81,000 and sinking. If we touch it now, we lock in the loss. And don't tell Natalie. Don't put that on her. So he didn't tell me. He sold his Lund fishing boat that spring instead. He took the parts counter job at Deacon's Mill Auto Supply, nights and Saturdays, at 60 years old, and slipped me $200 here, $350 there, cash and birthday cards in months that had no birthdays. I graduated with $51,000 in loans believing there had never been anything else. I want to be precise about what I felt when he told me that part, because angry is not precise. It was the specific nausea of an auditor finding the first bad entry, and knowing, with total professional certainty, that there is never just one. In 2020, he had his knee replaced. Vanessa brought casseroles and a durable power of attorney, just in case, just while you're in rehab, notarized at her kitchen table. He signed. Of course he signed. She was the daughter who showed up. Then this past June, a small, dull miracle. Copeland Wealth Partners migrated computer systems and mailed a trustee address verification letter to Frank Callahan directly, the first piece of trust mail to reach his hands in years. It listed the balance, $64,112, and a line about recent distribution activity. Your mother's money was supposed to be gone in the crash, Dad said. Gone is zero, Natalie. 64 is not zero. 64 is what's left. He called Copeland at the end of October and ordered 14 years of full statements on paper. The rep mentioned, helpfully, that the co-trustee receives an electronic notice whenever records are requested. He understood then that a clock had started running and that he couldn't see the clock. The packet came on a Saturday. He read it for an hour in the rural King parking lot and then drove home the long way. He'd already called Walter's old firm. Walter had retired. The earliest opening was with Carolyn Stanek, estate and trust litigation, 22 years, Monday the 16th, 10 a.m., and Deacon's Mill being Deacon's Mill. The woman at the front desk, Dana Kirsch, played volleyball with Vanessa in high school and sits 2 pews behind her at First Lutheran. I didn't think about Dana until Sunday, Dad said. Then I watched Vanessa across the church aisle watching me, and I thought about Dana a great deal. Tuesday morning, he called Vanessa and lied for the first time in his life on purpose, going up to the lake place until next Wednesday, leaving the phone. Don't fuss. He packed one bag, put the Copeland packet under the truck seat, and drove to Columbus. The original trust document, Mom's letters, and his handwritten ledger stayed home in the floor safe in his bedroom closet, because it never occurred to him that home was the one place they weren't safe. Why me? I asked, not fishing. I genuinely wanted the answer. He looked at me like the question was absurd. Because you're the only person I know who reads bank statements for a living, and because you're her sister. I suppose I hoped. He stopped and finished smaller. I hoped it wasn't what it was. Here's what people don't understand about fraud. You don't outrun it. You outpaper it. By 6:41, Vanessa had called back 6 times. I let all 6 go to voicemail. The last one had a brand new voice in it, shaky at the edges. Natalie, whatever you think is happening, call me back. Alone. I wrote a triage list on the legal pad, in order, because order is the only thing institutions respect. 1. Prove he's alive. 2. Freeze the money. 3. Revoke the power of attorney. 4. Lawyer. 5. Police. At 8:02, we were on with Copeland's fraud line. A specialist named Marcus walked Dad through identity verification. Mother's maiden name, first account, the works. Dad answered everything, and then added dryly, I imagine I'm the least dead man you'll talk to today. Marcus placed a verbal hold on the trust and flagged the co-trustee's access. Then his voice changed. Went careful. Sir, I'm noting a pending outbound wire in this morning's release batch. $58,000 to Hollis Asset Group, LLC. Scheduled last night at 11:47 p.m. through the co-trustee's online credentials. Decline it, Dad said. It's already flagged, sir. Nothing releases until our review is complete. The first domino held upright by a stranger named Marcus. At 9 pi, we were standing in a Pioneer Valley Bank branch on the north side of Columbus, while Dad signed a written revocation of the durable power of attorney, and a notary stamped it, and the branch manager faxed it system-wide. Dad told the notary it was the first document he'd ever signed to prove he was alive. The notary did not laugh. I did, a little, and it came out wrong, like a hiccup. At 9:12, Dad's phone, powered on for the first time since Tuesday, rang. Al Beeman, his neighbor of 30 years, talking fast. Frank, thank God there's a locksmith van in your driveway, and Grant is loading your table saw into his pickup. And Frank, they've got your floor safe on a hand truck. The safe. Everything original was in the safe. safe. My stomach did the thing where the elevator drops half a floor. Al stood on his porch and photographed all of it, timestamps on, because Al Beeman is a retired postal carrier and documentation is a love language. I tried the off-ramp exactly once. I called Vanessa back at 9:40 and said one sentence: put every dollar and every item back by Monday morning and this stays inside the family. There was a pause, and then my sister came back in a voice I'd never heard aimed at me before. Smooth, warm, open house voice. I don't know what you think you heard this morning, Natalie. Dad is confused. He's been confused for over a year. Everyone here knows it. We are securing his property because clearly he can't. Click. I looked at Dad. He'd heard all of it. He nodded slowly, like a man watching weather arrive that he'd already smelled. She's not going to admit she lied, he said. She's going to say I'm senile. At 12:14 p.m., the email came. Subject line, so you've heard. One attachment, restated last will and testament of Frank R. Callahan, 2023. 2 sentences in the body. This is the controlling document. Contest it and you'll lose more than money. I opened the PDF the way I open everything at work. Metadata first. Author, Gaulis. Created, Wednesday, November 11th, 11:12 p.m. 14 hours before my sister emailed me a will dated 2023, it had not existed. It got better. Wills need witnesses, and this one listed 2. Dad squinted at the second name, Roger Teal, an old shop customer. Roger witnessed my will in 2023, according to this. Roger died in 2021. I was a pallbearer. I printed it, sleeved it, and labeled the folder the way any professional would. V. At 1 mark, we were on video with Carolyn Stanek, gray bob, reading glasses on a chain, the unhurried diction of someone who bills in 6-minute increments and wastes none of them. She listened for 9 minutes without interrupting. Then, 3 things are true. 1. Your father is alive, which means today, every document is his to control. New will, restated trust, the revocation you've already signed. We paper all of it immediately, with a physician's capacity letter stapled on top because 2, your sister's only remaining move is to attack his mind. And 3, a small pause, the first thing she'd done for effect. Walter Bray never let an original leave this building without a duplicate original in our vault. Mr. Callahan, your daughter stole a safe full of paper that stopped mattering in 1994. The duplicate original of the Ellen Callahan Family Trust was 4 floors below her, in a fireproof cabinet, where it had been sleeping for 32 years. Stanek's list, dictated like a prescription. Preservation of evidence letters to Vanessa and to Dale Purvis. The strip mall lawyer Grant used for his LLC filings. Capacity evaluation as soon as humanly possible. A sheriff's report today. And the Monday 10 a.m. appointment kept exactly as scheduled. She wanted that time slot so badly, Stanek said. It seems rude not to use it. At 3:40, I filed the report by phone with the Harlan County Sheriff's Office and got a bored deputy who said the words, "Sounds civil, ma'am," twice. At 5:15, my phone rang back. Detective Carla Munn, financial crimes, 19 years on. Skeptical, not dismissive, there's a difference. And by then I could hear it. Grief makes families strange, Ms. Callahan. Send me the PDF and the neighbor's photos. And if your father's alive, have him call me himself. Today. Dad called her and opened with, "Detective, I'd like to report my own death." There was a long pause. Then Munn said, "Well, that's a first." And I heard a notepad slide across a desk. Friday at 9 a.m., a cancellation slot. Dr. Amrita Rao, board-certified geriatric psychiatrist, 15 years, Ohio State Outpatient Clinic. 90 minutes with Dad. He scored 28 out of 30 on the Montreal Cognitive Assessment, dropped 1 point on delayed recall and 1 on the cube, which, Dr. Rao said, puts him ahead of a fair number of the residents I supervise. Her letter went out the same afternoon. Full decisional capacity, fully oriented, and 1 sentence with teeth. Reported behavioral concerns appear to originate exclusively from third-party informants and are inconsistent with clinical presentation. Translation: the only place my father's dementia had ever existed was in my sister's mouth. At 11:30, Copeland's secure portal delivered 14 years of statements. 118 pages. I built the spreadsheet at my kitchen table while Dad watched golf with the sound off, which is what he does when he cannot sit still. The findings, in the order they made me put my pen down. The March 2009 statement, $438,516. 2. That's the month Vanessa told Dad the trust was at 81 and sinking. It never once dropped below 400,000. The crash cost my mother's trust a third. The lie cost it everything after. 2010 through 2013. Distributions labeled N. Callahan, education support, $118,400. Every dollar wired to an account I had never heard of at Pioneer Valley called Callahan Family Gift, opened in 2010. Sole signer, Vanessa C. Hollis. I received 4 years of college support the way lake houses receive controllers' salaries. 2014 onward. Trustee administrative fee, $1,250 a month, standing order like a gym membership for stealing. 2016 through 2024. 11 transfers to Hollis Asset Group LLC, memo portfolio diversification. $146,600 diversified into whatever grant is. 2019, $180,000 memo trust investment real property, the lot at Buckeye Lake, titled to Grant and Vanessa Hollis, jointly with Love. Total out, a little over $683,000. Remaining, $64,112. My mother's life insurance, administered for 32 years, reduced to the price of a nice pickup, and one line that wasn't in the statements at all. In 2013, the same spring the education support wires ended, Grant bought a 21-foot Mastercraft. Everyone in Deacon's Mill remembers the boat because Grant named it, and the name is painted on the stern in gold script. No regrets. Dad sold his boat in 2010 so I could make rent. I did cry, for the record. Once in the shower with the fan on for exactly as long as the hot water lasted. Then I dried my hair and went back to the table because crying is a state and a spreadsheet is leverage. When I showed Dad the March 2009 page, he read it twice, took off his glasses, and said the saddest sentence in this entire story. I apologized to her, in 2009, for making her look at the accounts while the market was doing that to her. He folded the glasses. She let me apologize. At 4:52 the Friday afternoon, Stanek called. The court's electronic notice had just landed. In the matter of the guardianship of Frank R. Callahan, emergency petition, person and estate, Harlan County Probate Court. Hearing, Thursday, November 19th, 9:30 a.m. Magistrate Diane Kessler presiding. Petitioner, Vanessa Hollis. Counsel, Dale Purvis. The exhibits were a tour of my sister's nerve. Her affidavit described a year of episodes. Dad repeating stories, missing bill payments, the bills she paid late, with his money. Grant's affidavit agreed with hers, which is Grant's entire skill set, and then the one that made Dad go very still. The sworn statement of Pastor James Ostrander, First Lutheran, that Frank Callahan had seemed disoriented after services, and not himself since summer. Their story under oath had molted overnight. Nobody ever said Frank died. There had been a miscommunication during a family crisis when Dad went missing. He'd been located in Columbus in a confused state, where his estranged younger daughter was isolating him from family and unduly influencing changes to his estate. 30 hours. That's how long it took her to flip it. I wasn't the excluded daughter anymore. I was the villain of her petition, and her fake death call had been laundered into evidence of his decline. That night, Dad's friend Sal Petralia called from the Legion Hall and made the last piece click. Frank, I gotta be honest with you. Vanessa's been telling people you're slipping since maybe last spring. The casserole ladies had you halfway to a memory ward. I kept saying Frank's sharper than my son-in-law, but that's what's been going around. 18 months. She'd been seeding the ground for 18 months. The fake death wasn't the plan. It was a panic move inside a much older plan, and the older plan was still on schedule. Stanek laid out the stakes with no anesthesia. If she wins even a temporary guardianship, every signature from this week, the new will, the revocation, all of it gets challenged as the product of an incapacitated man under your influence. The criminal case gets muddy for years. This hearing is the whole ballgame. You have 6 days. Saturday we drove down. Stanek cleared it. Munn arranged for a deputy to be nearby. Frost on the bean fields the whole way. Dad's thumb moving on the seam of the steering wheel like a worry stone. The new deadbolts were brass and bright against the old door. Vanessa's Tahoe sat in the driveway like it paid taxes there. She came out in her good coat, saw Dad, and performed, both hands to her mouth. Daddy, thank God, pitched precisely loud enough for the Beeman's porch. We were told the worst. You disappeared. You cannot be alone right now. Grant filled the doorway behind her with his arms crossed. Can't let you in, Frank, for your own safety. He was wearing Dad's Carhartt jacket. He didn't even know he was doing it, which somehow made it worse. Through the window of my old bedroom, I could see a weight bench, fully assembled, and a rack of dumbbells along the wall where my bookshelf used to be. You don't assemble a weight bench in a day. They'd been furnishing my absence for a while. Then my sister called 911 on us, reported that her elderly father had been taken from his home by a family member and returned agitated. Deputy Rosa Osi responded, separated everybody, and spent 10 minutes alone with Dad by my mother's rose bushes. She came back, radioed something short, and delivered the finest sentence of the weekend to Vanessa's face. Sir, seems clear as glass to me, ma'am. Who stays in the house is a civil matter. Property leaving it is not, so nothing else comes out that door. Not a lamp. She photographed the new locks, took Al's pictures on a thumb drive, and wrote a supplemental report. Institutional validation, on scene, in a county uniform. Dad never tried to go inside. He stood at the rose bushes, Ellen's rose bushes, 30-some years old, and dead-headed one spent stem with his thumbnail, pure habit. Then he looked at Vanessa and spoke in the voice I imagine he used when a supplier tried padding an invoice. Monday, 10 o'clock, Carolyn Stanek's office. Bring back everything, sign what she puts in front of you, and I will ask this county for mercy I do not feel. Otherwise, Vanessa, I'm going to stand back and let your sister do what she does. Vanessa smiled for the neighbors. Then, softly, just for us. You'll be in a home by Christmas. That was the last off-ramp anyone offered. Nobody took it. Sunday, Harold Pike came home from his daughter's place in Sun City West 2 days early because his daughter had shown him a Deacon's Mill community Facebook post mourning Frank Callahan. Harold is 79 and buried this town's parents for 4 decades and does not run anywhere. But Al Beeman swears he crossed his own yard at a pace. He called Dad, said several words I won't type, and then said the thing that mattered. Frank. 3 weeks ago, Vanessa called me. Wanted to know how fast a cremation can legally happen in Ohio and whether a death certificate can be pushed through in a day. Said it was research for a novel Grant's writing. A pause. Frank. I've known Grant 20 years. That man has never finished a menu. Monday, the paper started raining. Morning. Stanek's office. The 10 a.m. appointment my sister sister had raced to erase. Dad kept it. He signed the restated Ellen Callahan Family Trust. Vanessa removed, a licensed professional fiduciary installed, a new will, a healthcare directive, all of it witnessed by strangers. Dr. Rao's capacity letter clipped to the top like a cover sheet. Stanek squared the stack with both hands. Now it's a wall. Afternoon, Munn's office, where her whiteboard had become the story of Tuesday and Wednesday night in dry erase marker. Tuesday, 4:41 p.m. A1 lock work order. Full rekey of the Callahan house. Scheduled for Thursday, 9 a.m. Ordered by V. Hollis. Randy at A1 keeps immaculate records. My sister booked the locksmith 2 days before the death she'd announce, while by her own cabin story, her father was alive and fishing. Wednesday, 11:12 p.m. The 2023 will is created on Grant's laptop. Wednesday, 11:47 p.m. $58,000 scheduled out of the trust to Hollis asset. Wednesday, 11:58 p.m. A voicemail at Meadowbrook Funeral Home, the outfit that bought Harold's business. Vanessa pricing a direct cremation, asking how soon it could be scheduled, describing the death as imminent, likely tonight. Thursday, 6:31 a.m. She called me. She priced the cremation before anyone could have found a body, for a death that was never going to happen. 29 minutes after wiring herself $58,000 of my mother's money. Munn capped her marker and studied the board. 19 years, she said. She'd watched grief make people do strange things. Grief doesn't book the locksmith early, Ms. Callahan. Projects do. She said the file was going to the county prosecutor with her recommendation attached, and she used the word I'd been waiting 4 days for someone official to say out loud. Felony. One problem. Prosecutors move in months. The hearing was in 3 days. Tuesday, Dale Purvis found his angle. A subpoena landed on Dad's pharmacy. In 2020, after the knee replacement, Frank Callahan filled a prescription for 20 tablets of oxycodone. There was a missed cardiology follow-up in 2023. By Tuesday night, there was a supplemental affidavit from Vanessa describing confusion episodes, now with dates on them. Stanek called it noise. Then she told us the truth about noise. Magistrates are careful people. Careful people sometimes appoint a temporary guardian just to slow everything down and think, temporary is all she needs. Temporary undoes the weak. Then the next hole opened. Copeland's records custodian, the actual human who has to sit in a chair and swear the statements are the statements, was unavailable until the following week. Chain of custody. The phrase I deploy on other people's disasters was suddenly the crack in mine. Stanek and Marcus spent all of Wednesday building a bridge over it. Certified copies, a business records affidavit, an overnight envelope, signature required. Wednesday at 9:04 p.m. And a crack we didn't order. Pastor Ostrander emailed the court, Purvis, and for reasons of conscience, I think, me. Harold had played him the Meadowbrook voicemail after Wednesday Bible study. The withdrawal of his affidavit was 4 sentences long. The last one read, I was mistaken about Frank, and I was used. I thought that would put wind in Dad. Instead, at 11, I found him at the dark window in the navy robe. Maybe I let her have it, he said. I stood very still. I'm 77, Natalie. Whatever this costs, I pay it in years I don't have. And she's still, his jaw worked, she's still the girl who braided your hair for your mother's funeral. She was 16. Maybe I let her keep the money, and I keep whatever's left quiet. Here's something I know from 100 conference rooms. Speeches are for closing arguments. Doubt only answers to evidence. So I didn't make a speech. I went to the folder marked V and took out the one page I'd been saving. The duplicate original from Walter Bray's vault. Page 1 of the trust. 2 signatures at the bottom. His, Steady, and hers. 11 days before she died, I said, Mom signed this. Look at the E, Dad. The E is confident. The rest of it wobbles. I put the page in his hands. You're not going into that courtroom to fight Vanessa. You're going to deliver Mom's mail. It's 32 years late. He held it a long time. The furnace clicked on. Somewhere down on the street, a car door. Make extra bacon tomorrow, he said finally, which, in the native language of Frank Callahan, means yes. I was still awake at 2:47 a.m., staring at the ceiling, running direct examination in my head like scales. Harlan County Probate Court shares a hallway with the License Bureau, so we waited for the hearing that would decide my father's personhood next to a teenager clutching a learner's permit pamphlet. Vanessa arrived in full open house mode. Pearl studs, leather folio, a condolence firm handshake for the bailiff. Grant wore a tie the way scaffolding wears a tarp. She looked at me exactly once, the up and down she has done since I was 6, and I thought, in 32 years, you never once wondered what I do all day. Magistrate Diane Kessler ran her courtroom like a tight meeting. Purvis went first, and I'll give him this. The story was clean. Devoted local daughter. Declining father. A family tragedy tragically misread. An estranged sibling with sudden interest in the estate. He said elder isolation 4 times. On his paper, it nearly held. Then Carolyn Stanek stood up, and for the next 40 minutes, I watched 22 years of practice do quiet, methodical work. Dr. Rao appeared by video, capacity, orientation, the testing, and then the sentence that mattered. Every reported symptom traced back to informants, not one to the patient. Purvis went after the oxycodone. Dr. Rao replied that 20 tablets following a knee replacement in 2020 is not a red flag, counsel. It's called discharge instructions. Dad testified for 11 minutes. Kessler asked him the date, the year, the president, where he'd been staying, and why. Then she asked whether he understood his own assets. My father folded his hands. Better than I have in 32 years, Your Honor. My wife's trust holds totaled $64,112. I know it to the dollar now. He let that sit exactly one breath. Learning the number is how we all ended up in your courtroom. Then the exhibits. Exhibit D, my distribution schedule. 14 years of my sister's withdrawals reduced to a single page, admitted through Copeland's certified records. The overnight envelope had made it to Stanek's hands at 8:50 that morning. Exhibit F, the metadata report on the 2023 will, created Wednesday, 11:12 p.m. A author Jihalis, witnessed by a man who had been dead for 2 years on its own stated date. And Exhibit H, Stanek asked permission to play Exhibit H aloud. Some sounds change the air in a room. My sister's telephone voice, bright, efficient, the voice that has sold 403-bed 2 baths, asking a funeral home at 11:58 on a Wednesday night how quickly a cremation could be arranged for a death that was imminent, likely tonight. 14 hours before she told me Harold had found the body. Grant studied his shoes like they had surprised him. Vanessa did not move at all, which was somehow worse. Purvis requested a recess. When we came back, he asked leave to withdraw as counsel, on the record, citing the rules of professional conduct in a voice you could hear in the hallway. A lawyer walking away from his own petition is a closing argument nobody gets to give. Magistrate Kessler took 20 minutes and returned with flat calm. Petition denied, with prejudice. Findings read into the record. No clinical evidence of incapacity whatsoever. The petition was filed not out of concern for Frank Callahan, but in furtherance of a scheme against his estate. Then she granted our emergency motions instead. Vanessa suspended as co-trustee, enjoined from every account, ordered to surrender the house keys, the floor safe, and every removed item within 48 hours. The hearing transcript, she said, would be delivered to the county prosecutor's office. Today, in the hallway, Vanessa stopped in front of us. Up close, the open house face was still perfect, and the eyes had gone somewhere I didn't recognize. She spoke quietly, only for the two of us, nodding at me while she said it to him. One last inventory. She was nothing in this family. You know that. Dad picked his hat up off the bench. She was never nothing, he said. You just kept the books that way. We walked out past the teenager with the permit pamphlet into the cold, and my father exhaled like a man setting down a ladder he'd carried for 32 years. The rest arrived the way real consequences arrive, on schedules, in envelopes. In December, the charges. Vanessa, theft from a person in a protected class. Ohio adds weight when the victim is over 65. 2 counts of forgery, telecommunications fraud, tampering with records. Grant, complicity and receiving. Detective Munn called us the morning of the arraignment so we wouldn't learn it from the Facebook group. In March, the pleas. There was no trial. Munn's whiteboard had a way of ending conversations. Vanessa took 30 months and a restitution order of $741,000, covering the trust and the power of attorney money both, and the state's real estate division permanently revoked her license. A realtor's obituary if there ever was one. Grant took 14 months. Hollis Asset Group LLC was dissolved by the state in the spring for being, in the official phrasing, nothing. The Buckeye Lake lot sold in April. $191,000 came home to my mother's trust. The Mastercraft went to auction with the name still on the stern, which I have elected not to find funny in public. Their house went on the market in June to cover what the paper alone couldn't. We didn't drive by. I'm not claiming that as virtue. There was just nothing there we needed to see. Dale Purvis collected a public reprimand from the bar. Dana Kirsch no longer works the front desk at Bray and Stanek. Pastor Ostrander came to the house in January, sat with Dad for an hour, and left without his coat, which Dad mailed back with a note I was not allowed to read. Restitution comes in increments, and I'll tell you the honest thing nobody puts in these stories. The math will never fully close. 14 years of compounding does not come back through a court clerk's window. Some of it you recover. The rest you just finally get to name. It's been a year now. A few updates, in no particular order of importance. The trust is restated in my mother's name, run by a licensed fiduciary Dad refers to as the babysitter. The first thing he did when restitution started landing was wire off my student loans, all $51,000, no discussion permitted. The memo line on the transfer said 1994. The second thing was the Ellen Callahan Memorial Scholarship at Deacons Mill Elementary. $2,500 a year for a graduating senior from the district who wants to become a teacher. It's small. My mother taught 3rd grade. Small was the entire point of her. Vanessa sent a card at Christmas, postmarked Marysville. Grant's name printed, not signed. 4 words. I hope Dad is well. No apology anywhere in it, which at least was honest. Dad read it at the kitchen table, put it in the junk drawer with the batteries and the twist ties, and went back to his crossword. Some doors you don't bother locking. You just stop walking through them. He rekeyed the house himself this fall, worn tumblers, nothing dramatic, and had 2 keys cut. One of them came to me in a padded envelope with no note, because the key was the note. And in November, on the 18th, we drove out to the cemetery together, which in 32 years I had never once done with him. Ellen Marie Callahan, 1950-1994. He brushed the frost off the top of the stone with his coat sleeve, gently, the way you'd fix someone's collar. He didn't say anything to me. He said it to her. Fixed it. On the drive home, he stole the last piece of bacon out of the takeout box on my lap. On principle. Very much alive. He told me once that he had a 32-year-old mistake to fix, and for 2 days I was afraid the mistake was me. It was never me. It was the paperwork. In my line of work, it almost always is.